On today's question of faith, can I become a priest if I get my marriage annulled? Hey everybody, this is Question of Faith. I'm Mike Hayes. Here in the Diocese of Cleveland, I am the Director of Young Adult Ministry.
And I am Father Damien Ference, Vicar for Evangelization.
And I'm Terry Yeoman, the Director of Marriage and Family Ministry.
Hey Terry, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Yourself?
Thanks for being our third host today.
Absolutely. Third time's a charm.
Terry, you have a lovely voice.
You are so rotten. It's from yelling, not smoking.
It's great.
We're all just talking about the hideous melodious sounds of our own voices and how much we all probably don't like them.
I'll do my best.
I don't like to listen back.
Right.
But I like talking to you all.
There you go. Same here.
Amen.
And yeah,
Preach
speaking... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said, preach on, preach on.
So, yeah, first of all, this is a real question from someone who I'll call Kevin, who wanted to remain anonymous. And first of all, I wanted to say, sorry that your marriage seems to be in trouble, Kevin. That was the first thought I had about this, thinking about the other side of marriage and annulment. And so I guess the first question I ask is, what is an annulment? What does it actually mean?
Well, I think when you start to think of this annulment, there's a difference between annulment and a divorce.
Right.
And so I think that's an important first step for us to talk about.
Right. Yeah, this isn't Catholic divorce. This is something else. So what is it if it's not a Catholic divorce?
Well, the annulment's the process after the divorce has already occurred, and it's that something was there at the beginning that stopped this from being a wedding, a marriage in full in sacrament.
Right, yeah, because people will often say that, it means that the marriage didn't exist. And they'll say, well, what do you mean the marriage doesn't exist? I was there. It's like I was at the wedding. It doesn't mean that a wedding didn't take place.
Right. So something stopped the two people from fully entering into the marriage.
And you're right. What you're saying is true, that the Church will go back and examine the relationship and in an annulment recognize that what was supposed to be there from the beginning wasn't there. Mm-hmm. Correct? I'm not a canonist, so I always feel like I could do philosophy pretty well and theology pretty well, but when it comes to canonists, I'm wondering if there's a canon lawyer listening who could make better distinctions than me. That's true. So, that's. I just wanted to say that out loud.
That's fine. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So I've taken canon law, so I'll take a crack at it, even though I am not a canonist either. But canon law is the way we live out our theology.
Correct.
It's and the law always bends toward mercy is the other thing that we always want to say about canon law. So. Basically, what we're saying is that at some point, whatever was necessary for a sacrament to take place, there was something there missing, whether that's someone didn't intend to be faithful.
Mm-hmm. Someone didn't intend to have children.
Right. Those are the two biggest examples, probably,
and struggles with mental health, domestic violence, there could be all those things.
Yeah, someone withheld something, right? Like they didn't disclose that they had a mental illness or an addiction of some sort.
Or someone wasn't able to give consent.
Right.
Fully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, I'm not speaking as a canonist, but as a philosopher and a former parish priest, because I took canon law too.
Yeah. Shotgun wedding is a great example. Mm-hmm. It's you come free and without obligation to the wedding.
I think too, people sometimes get confused because they're like, well, why do we have to go through this? It's been 30 years. What am I doing with this? And it's like, well, this is the process that we have, and there's a reason for it. And it's not always about that specific marriage and the annulling of that one. It could be also that the second time around, someone could be stopped from doing this to someone else if there is a fatal flaw in the character or an ability for them to join into marriage fully. We want to be aware of that. And it's also can be very healing for some people to go through the annulment process. Not always, but sometimes it's a very healing process for individuals to go through.
Yeah, it must be said that the Catholic Church takes marriage most seriously in terms of our preparation for it, in terms of the paperwork that needs to be done, but the fact that you have to make pre-Cana day, that you meet with your priest, all those sorts of things, so that when it comes to that day and you make those vows, you mean what you say and you say what you mean. But even so, sometimes it doesn't turn out that way. So rather than just saying, well, that really didn't count, we want to go back and say, no, we believed what you said at this point. So now if this didn't work the way that we had all hoped it would, let's figure out what happened here, and maybe from the beginning what was supposed to be there wasn't there. So this isn't, annulments don't exist so the church can punish people or make people feel bad. It's actually for healing, and because we take marriage so darn seriously that we do these sorts of things.
That's perfect.
I want to go back to the beginning part, though.
Yeah.
Kevin's question.
Mm-hmm.
Can he become a priest if his marriage is annulled?
Right.
Still haven't gotten to that point.
So we're talking about another sacrament on top of on top of marriage. We're talking about holy orders. So what's holy orders?
Oh, yeah. Well, first I want to answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's possible, and I'm not going to speak to Kevin individually because I don't know him or his situation, but is it possible for a man who was married but the marriage was annulled to apply to the seminary and become ordained? It is possible because I've known two priests who were married and their marriages were annulled. So it is possible.
And I know of one. So
Okay.
that's right. So that is certainly possible that someone is now eligible, shall we say, to enter into the seminary process. But what would be some considerations be here?
Well, just like any other man who would apply to the seminary, he would have to have a recommendation from his pastor. He'd have to go through psychological evaluations. He'd have to be free of any impediments that would keep him from being a priest. And there are a variety of those. Now, I wasn't prepared. I didn't write all those down before.
No, but similar to impediments to marriage,
Yes.
right? Addictions
Yes.
would be one.
Right.
You know, whatever would withhold you from being able to take those vows at the end of the line, right?
I think even discerning, is he really discerning God's will for him? Or is it that my marriage didn't work out, I don't know what to do, and God will still take me, and trying to figure out, is it your own decision to do this or God's will for you to do this, and have you really examined all the emotional stuff that you went through?
Right. So discernment's always done in community, that God may tug on our heart, but then you want to know what your parish, your Catholic friends all think. If everyone's saying, that's a really bad idea, but you're saying, no, I think I'd be a great priest, well, it's probably not going to turn out too well, and you're probably not going to make it through the seminary that way. But you're right. You don't want to come into the formation of priestly formation with all sorts of baggage that you haven't dealt with. So if you're recently divorced and just went through an annulment, you want to make sure, first of all, that you've worked through all that business and that you're discerning honestly, not because this is something else I could do, but it's an actual call that the Lord's put on his heart. And that takes time, and there's no rush in there. You have hopefully a good vocation director, a good spiritual director, a good pastor, good friends who can help you with that discernment.
Amen.
Yeah, exactly. And the circumstances of the annulment at the end, First thing I was thinking of is, okay, so if someone cheated on their wife, went and gotten an annulment, that went through, and then they said, oh, I think I'll just go and be a priest. Well, probably that's not going to go over too well with the formation committee when you say, well, I cheated on my wife, that's why my marriage ended. Not that there's not forgiveness, not that that's not possible, but that's something. Did you work through all that at the end?
Yeah, and what were the results of this annulment? What's happened since? What have you learned about yourself?
Right.
All those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I teach at the college seminary, so when I interview guys to come in, they're usually right out of high school or transferring in from college. So I haven't had any direct experience with someone of this. Usually it would be a lot older in life. But it is a reality, and we do have a major seminary, so it's a good question.
And I've worked with a lot of second career seminarian folks, whether that's been on a parish staff or if they were assigned to a ministry that I was involved in as part of their formation process. And so I've seen guys who have made it all the way through who have really worked through a whole bunch of stuff, whether those are, recovery issues that maybe they've had from the past. There was one guy who had been in a relationship that didn't lead to marriage, but was certainly the baggage that he brought with him to formation. all those kinds of things. And I think that, formation be formation, as I always like to say, and I'm in formation myself for the diaconate, there are going to be things that come up throughout that process that you need to work on and pay attention to. And your formators, if they're good formators, will have you do that.
And that's the idea behind the pre-Cana and the 6 months preparation for getting married in the Catholic Church. If you ever look at the front of a bulletin, it always says you want to get married 6 months notice so that you're not rushing into it, so that you have some time of formation, so that you're working through your baggage, hopefully with a good priest, deacon, lay minister, couple ministry, that you're not just saying, I know this is my vocation, I'm going to do it, don't tell me what to do, I'll figure it out. No, you're part of a community, and you're called to live out this vocation within the life of the church. So it's not just about you, and the church helps form you. And individual people have been designated to do that, whether it's diaconate, marriage, or priesthood, or religious life.
Yeah, when I worked with people in marriage preparation, we would give them one of those compatibility survey things. The one we used at the time at the diocese I was in then was Facet, and they would just have questions, yes, no, maybe. So like, we've decided on the number of children we want, yes, no, maybe. And then you'd compare the answers, and then you'd talk about the ones that they disagreed on. And I would tell the couples going in, we're going to find something that you disagree on. No one gets 100%. And
we use a different one here, though. We use Prepare and Enrich, and it's always that it's not a test. It's about your strengths and your growth areas, and try to build on what they do bring to the table and what they could potentially work on in communication or problem solving, creating wish lists. And we just try to continue to support them in that this is a tool for us to use to build a strong marriage.
Yeah.
And all of our couples are supposed to do that before they ever come. And a good 6 months.
I like Prepare and Enrich because it gives the facilitator a printout and the couple a printout. It's color-coded with graphs. It's wonderful. And I really love the exercise. I do this with all my couples. If you're listening, plug your ears if you haven't met with me yet. But there's an exercise where you split the couple up and you say, write down 3 things that you'd like to change about your relationship. And some of the couples who don't communicate well they're like, no, everything's fine. And then you say, you're not getting back together. You sit at that end of the table on this end, and then the tears come. And then it may be the first time that they've had the hard, like, this really bothers me, that really bothers me. And I'm like, praise Jesus, this is it. It's okay. You don't have to pretend you're perfect. Part of formation is working through your stuff and bringing the Lord in to heal that business. Same is true at seminary, religious life, diaconate. I mean, we're all disciples who need Christ's healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done Prepare and Enrich also, because we had to do it for our diaconate formation. And my wife and I found that the things that we disagreed on at the start of our marriage are still the things that we disagree on now from time to time, or that we have arguments about, whether that's money or family or anything like that. Yeah, those are the things that usually trip us up. So it usually finds the things that are not only going to be problems before you get married, but the things that may continue to trip you up along the way. Right.
That's the goal. And I think like Father Damien said, going through it with somebody is just a wonderful opportunity for them. Any of the couples out there that are listening that are considering becoming Prepare and Enrich facilitators and marriage mentors in the diocese, please reach out to me, because we've done the training with about 10 people at different parishes, and it's funny because it's intimidating. The first times they're going through this, they're like, oh, I don't know if we can do this. I don't know if we can do this. I met with a group at St. Michael's on Scranton last weekend, and as we just sat and looked at the reports, and they were like, we can do this.
Yeah,
we can
cool.
do this. We can meet with couples and go through these things and help build their marriages. So please reach out.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my shameless plug.
That's fine. And we'll put your shameless plug in the show notes so that people could easily reach out to you for that.
Sure.
Hey, if you have a question of faith, you could send that to us. You could email us. We'll put that in the show notes. But it's just my email, mhayes@dioceseofcleveland.org. And if you even want to send us a little audio clip, that would be great.
Oh, then
we'll play that on the air, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if your question is somewhat lengthy. That would be awesome. And by the way, rate and review. We're actually getting a lot of ratings. We have a 4.9 rating on iTunes now, so that's great.
High A.
That's right. Yeah, high A. And said the professor.
I hope I don't bring it down.
No, that's only if you rate it, Tara.
Oh, okay.
And so give us a rating, give us a review. That would be all great to do. And we give you a church to check out each week. And we're going to go out to Oberlin, Ohio, and Sacred Heart Parish.
Yes.
So what do we know about Sacred Heart?
Well, I know that the church is at least the second church because I go out to Oberlin on my day off often. And if you're not familiar, Oberlin has it's a college town, and there's a great art museum there. And just outside of town is this little Sacred Heart church. So Oberlin is a college community, but also like a farming community. It's not Gothic; it's fairly modern, but it's very clean. It's very well kept.
It's a progressive town too.
Oh, the town is. The town is.
Yeah,
yes.
they have. John Mercer Langston was from there, and he worked with Frederick Douglass. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
Houses there, yes, back in like the late 1800s. So they've always been pretty progressive in what they're doing, and it's a quaint town.
I think one of the first women to graduate college was from Oberlin too. Yeah, it's a great town for food. Like I like to eat Aladdin's. There's a great restaurant called the Fev. There's cool little shops all around. Great quad. But we're going to be doing 9 nights a night prayer at the church, and Father Trask, who's the pastor, is going to bring students from Oberlin College, and A.J. Hoy's the campus minister. And I guess they have some of the students in the not the consortium. What do you call the music group?
Conservatory
Who are going to lead cantering and playing music those nights. So it should be pretty great. Come on out to Sacred Heart in Oberlin. And Father Trask is pastor of 2 parishes.
Yes,
Oberlin's one, and I forget the other one.
St. Pat's in Wellington.
St. Pat's and Beef Wellington.
He gets to do both.
And what about the community there and of the parish itself? What do we know about them? Like what's going on in the parish?
Well, I know that at the Sacred Heart location, they actually have collections for the Oberlin Community Services, so you can drop off like detergent, hygiene things, I'm sure.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it's bins right at the back of the church that people could bring things to. So if you're coming out for 9 nights and want to bring something along, you could probably throw it in their bins. So I think that it's just with the progressive nature of the town, I think they're definitely a community that takes care of people. I noticed that watching Mass online, like all the people had their masks on. They were very, very conscientious of one another as they were going up for communion. It was neat to watch.
Well, in the town itself, it's a very masked college campus. So even like when they're walking out, so it's interesting to go community to see the differences. But you're right, that's Oberlin.
Yes.
Their mascot is a squirrel for the college, I think.
Is it really?
I think so.
That's pretty funny. I'm going to look that up and put it in the show, and maybe put a little picture of the mascot in the show notes.
Maybe we can bring the mascot down for the NBA All-Star Weekend to the cathedral or do something fun.
Yeah. Hey, why don't we talk about that? What's going on All-Star Weekend here? So the All-Star game for the NBA is here in Cleveland this year.
International attention in downtown Cleveland, and so we're going to be doing some sidewalk ministry on the 19th and 20th of February. We're going to have youth groups down here and young adult groups, so we're going to be passing out basketballs, doing a little sidewalk synod. That was Mike's idea. It was brilliant. So, come on down to the cathedral. Maybe come for Mass.
Yeah. And get a free cool basketball for answering a few questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
I think it's an opportunity for us to be witnessing to everybody. And, we've been, even in the Gospels, it's always that we have to go out and preach the good news. And if necessary, use words. And this is going to be a way for us to let them know.
Speaking of the Gospel, coming up this weekend, Luke chapter 5, 1-11, and it's the great catch of fish and the call of the disciples. So pay attention. What should we pay attention to this week?
I think it's just great to keep in mind that Peter was a little reluctant, to listen to Jesus the carpenter, but then he does, and then he comes to the seashore and says, "Lord, depart from me, I'm a sinful man." And that guy became the first pope.
Yeah, that's right.
So whenever I read these stories about Peter, whether he can't walk on water or whether he tries to tell Jesus what to do at the Last Supper, whether he denies him 3 times, that's the one Jesus chose. He didn't say, "You're done, I'm going to pick John." He forgave him, he restored him, and then he made him the first pope of the church. So if there's hope for Peter, then there's hope for all of us.
Absolutely. One of my friends used to say, if you want to be a good disciple, look at everything the disciples do and then don't do them, because they really mess things up. And then I say, no, that's not true. I said, It's that God uses the things that in these folks, even when they mess up, to build a great church. And he's like, okay, you got me. That's good.
Yeah.
It's true. I agree 100%. I read the gospel this morning preparing for this, and it was the same thing. I was like, Simon Peter, man. I love Simon.
Yeah.
It just resonates because even all the things that we do and when we fail, he's still there, still called him in. He realized it and left everything and dropped everything to go. I'm going with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Question of Faith. Read the gospel for next week. I'm Mike Hayes.
I'm Father Damien Ference.
And I'm Terry Yeoman.
And we'll see you all next week with your Question of Faith.